I was doing some public service for the state, doing economic development work where the state decided that we should invest in technologies coming out of universities, which is a crazy idea, public money for private investments. But we, so I had just sold a company and was trying to retire, and that lasted like 2 days. And then my wife was just like, okay, you need to get out. Like, I love you, but like, get out, get back to work. And so I was just angling to try and get on that committee, and then they asked me to chair it. In the middle of that process, we're investing in university-based technology. And we heard that there was like $45 million a year at the time coming into San Antonio and bouncing out. Now I'm working in Austin, and they're like, San Antonio, isn't that in your backyard? You know, what the heck's going on down there? I'm like, I don't know, but I'll go check it out. So I came down here and knocked on the door at the ISR and threw the governor's name around. So they were silly enough to let me in, and I went and talked to the then commander, John Holcomb. And I'm like, Colonel Holcomb, like, I heard there was a bunch of money coming down, and like, why aren't you spending it in Texas? And he's like, David, why aren't we spending it in Texas? And I'm just like, yeah, why not? No infrastructure here. None of the things that you guys are building here, Velocity, none of that really existed. And so then I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur, and maybe I could do something. I was getting a little tired of doing public service. I was paying to do that job, by the way, right? It sounds fancier than it was. But I'm like, I've done at the time probably 13 different companies. Like, I actually said these words, Jeremy. It was just so crazy to admit. How hard can medical device be? Like, what? Like, how hard can it be? Like, what? So that's when I came down and started hanging out at the ISR, saying, hey, what are you guys doing? And at that time, I counted 87 potential technologies just at the ISR that they were working on that was like, could be a company. I'm not saying they were all going to be companies, but 87, that's just me counting. And I'm like, there's a lot cooking. So I tried one idea that was a stone cold disaster, mainly because the founder and CEO was a moron and didn't know what he was doing. That was me, by the way. How hard is medical devices? Oh, hard. And, but the second idea was that thing, which you have on the wall, this crazy idea that there's got to be a better way for combat wounded or car crash victims to, you're bleeding internally, super bad career choice. Don't bleed internally. God did not intend for somebody to have their hands in your guts, right? And you're bleeding. So now what do the surgeons do? Oh, they cut you open and muck around in there. So you're going to bleed even more. And the military had this huge problem with IEDs back then. Now it's drones. Amazingly, all associated with the Iranians. We won't talk about that part, but the Iranians were doing shaped charges back on the IEDs and killing a bunch of Americans back then. And no one should bleed to death. But if you're bleeding internally, you can bleed to death. And this was the military's attempt to tackle that. And by the way, 15 years later, they're still trying to solve it.
Yeah, those preventable means of death.
Right.
Like so the non-compressible hemorrhage is what we're talking about.
Non-compressible hemorrhage.
Well, so you've alluded to it, but can you talk a little bit about the technology itself?
So I mean, by the way, every once in a while, someone will say, "Oh, that invention you did." I actually did not invent balloon occlusion. I wish I could claim that. I would like, add that to the resume. The military folk came up with the idea, and it sounds horrific. It actually works. As you're bleeding internally, instead of putting a big old hole in the chest, how about we put a small hole in your leg, put a catheter, a plastic stick with a balloon on the end of it, float it up in the aorta, and then inflate it. Boop! It's like sticking a golf ball in a garden hose. It just stops all the blood, except for right here, your heart, your lungs, your brain. You need that. And keeps it from, going out your spleen.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you were talking about med tech device companies being a little more challenging than you initially
How
thought.
hard
So
can it
given that,
be?
what are some of, if you could generalize challenges that you've experienced that maybe other med tech device what would you say? What are the big things?
I can just tell my experience. Like I had a mentor. He's a gentleman named Jack Gill. He started a Vanguard Ventures back in the 70s. So that they were the first med tech associated venture fund, and they created a couple of $1 billion in wealth back when that was a lot of money, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
And I talked to him. He was on the Texas Emerging Technology Fund committee with me, and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about going and
yeah,
doing med tech. He's just like, don't do med tech. I'm like, what?
yeah,
What am I, chop liver? He's like, no, not you. But like, why would you do that? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I? And he's like, because you can go to do Pinterest and it's going to do software as a services. You'll know in 2 years. It's either going to be worth $1 billion or zero.
yeah,
And a med tech company, if it works, is going to take you 8 years. And maybe you're going to exit, like, let's say it's a home run. You're going to exit for a couple of $100 million.
yeah,
Like you could get $1 billion in 2 years. If it doesn't work, you can do that 4 times,
yeah,
or you can do one med tech company. So go chase the money. And I was like, okay, great advice. I'm going to totally ignore it because that's what I do. Like smart people's advice, I totally ignore
yeah,
it and regret
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
later. And his argument was actually right. And then he did say another thing, which was super relevant for working with trauma. The military cares about trauma. It's like
Mhm.
people getting blown up,
Yeah, I
car
mean,
crashes,
they
that kind of
they
stuff.
are our National Institute of Trauma. We don't
They
have
are
one. They
right.
essentially are it. Yeah,
So trauma is tough
yeah,
because you can't do randomized control trials.
hmm,
It's not like, hey, you got in a car crash, you're going to die in 5 minutes. By the way, let me explain this trial. And could you sign right here? And
yep,
it just doesn't work.
yep,
So that's a problem. And, but then he said, look, the biggest problem is you're going to design a technology, a balloon that goes in, and then you're going to teach a doctor about it. Maybe she will say, great, let me try that. Except 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months later, she's going to use it in the middle of the night on a car crash victim. You're not going to be there.
yeah,
And so you can't proctor it. And if they don't remember, they're going to screw it up and they're going to blame you,
yeah,
not the device. I mean, it can't be them. It has to be something's wrong. And boy, was he right on that.
yeah,
And so now oversharing like but for like 2 years, I saw that and then I was like mad and they should do better.
yeah,
And it was like, you can't, here's a little thing I teach to people that are silly enough to listen to me. You can't be mad at your customers. It's a bad sales strategy. Like, hey, you should buy my stuff.
yeah,
You idiot. Like that doesn't
yeah,
actually
yeah,
work.
yeah.
It's like,
Shocking, shocking.
shockingly.
Yeah,
So I'm like, yeah, maybe, just maybe I'm the problem. And I was, I didn't have the right mindset, heart for service for the surgeon. And surgeons, man, especially trauma surgeons,
yeah,
but also they got a really tough job, right?
hmm,
Like you're going to get a pay. Trauma surgery is the only surgical specialty where they're actually diagnosing and treating at exactly the same time. Like you and I go in for knee surgery, tonsillectomy. There's a lot of planning associated with that. The doctor thinks it through. They take pictures. They do they do all the kind. Nobody just says, "Hey, let's just take your knee out. Let's just replace it. What the heck?" But trauma surgery, guess what? You're dying. We have no idea why.
hmm,
It's in there.
yeah,
So we got to cut and diagnose at the same time we're treating. It's like a super difficult job to have.
yeah.
And then I'm in here like, hey, here's this random device that you're going to use once in a blue moon, and you should know everything
Right,
about it. It
right,
just didn't
right,
work.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we could go further with the device stuff, but I think you brought up, and there's a theme we've talked about a couple times, which are like traits of founders. What are good traits? And I know that you think about this because I don't know if you remember, I met you, 15 years ago, and
Same parole officer. I'm
you
telling you, that was
you gave me the Jack Gill questionnaire where there are like traits that you respond to, and you said, "I don't work with anyone who scores under a certain thing." And then I met you a few years later, so must not have scored high enough.
that's hilarious. Yeah, I stole that from him, and he actually is right. Like, it's the big question: can you teach entrepreneurship? Or are you
Yep,
born to it?
yep,
And that is this ongoing debate. And I can only share my experience, which is, you know, you got to be a little touched in the head to
yeah,
want to go do a startup.
yeah,
You, by definition, if it was already obvious and needed and easy, it would be done already.
yep,
So, kind of by definition, if you're going to be startup B, you have to go, well, this is crazy. Like, if there aren't a bunch of people telling you you're crazy, something's wrong.
mm,
But if there's a bunch of people telling you that it's crazy, something's wrong.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if
yeah.
I figured it out.
Yeah, well, I wonder, like, what are categories of that? So it's interesting. We've had discussions on, like, do schooling approaches like Montessori allow for more people to have whatever the traits may be? We don't know, but this is a theme that has come up over and over. And I
I
just keep,
got here's what I've been doing lately, which is okay. Um, Studying entrepreneurship, studying what it takes to run companies, whether or not you run a company one day, you will outperform your peers
hmm,
because you have a better understanding of how things actually work. There's this great book called The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. And I work with a lot of engineers, and I was just telling them, like, you can be an engineer who thinks that this engineering thing is the answer, but it's not. If you're an engineer and you understand the entirety of how business works and how engineering fits in, you're going to outperform your peers because you have a better understanding.
yeah,
And as I like to say, engineering is hard, getting the work is harder. So,
hmm,
this is one of the reasons I do encourage studying entrepreneurship, hanging out around them, reading great books, listening to people's stories, wins or losses, because then you're going to outcompete your peers, even if you don't go do it yourself.
yeah. Well, so you've named one book. Are there other books you'd recommend in this vein?
Well, the current book that I'm running through with kind of the up and coming leaders is a fascinating little book. It's called The 13 Fatal Errors Managers Make,
Okay.
which is like from the 80s. And it's like cringy because it talks about, like, it's everything is he. There's all he's, like, it's
Yeah,
80s
yeah,
cringy
yeah.
kind of stuff, but great book. 13 fatal errors to avoid,
Okay,
basically.
okay.
And so then I got this from a buddy of mine who's actually in the construction business, and they're using it for leadership development. And I'm like, oh, let me look at 13. I'm on like my 18th company. And I started looking, I'm like, oh my God, I do like at least half of these. I do these every
Yeah,
day, like
yeah, yeah.
stupid stuff, man. Like, it's super bad. So, you know, that is the book I'm currently running through. I like it. It's just kind of small chapters. And then they're like, what is the number one thing you learned from this chapter? And then
Mhm,
who are you going to commit to? Like, what are you going to take away from this? And then it forces you to make a commitment. Like, Dr. Nelson, I'm going to, like, here's one that we're currently talking about, which is like accountability
mhm.
and bosses that say your employees need to do this stuff, but oh, not me, because I'm too busy because I'm the
Right,
boss.
right, right.
So, like, at work, I ask everybody to do a weekly written accountability in writing. It's
Mhm,
not really long. We call it 3 Ps. It's like progress. What'd you do this week? Plans. What do you plan to do next week? And then problems. Like, and the audience is actually for yourself. It's an accountability thing.
hmm,
Oh, do I do that regularly? No. Like last Friday, I got busy. I worked really late. I didn't do my 3P. And then I'm like, on Monday, I'm studying accountability. It's like, number one rule of fatal error, making your employees do something that
You're not
you
gonna
don't do. And I'm
yeah,
just like,
I like that rule.
total boss hypocrite here.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Okay, well, I guess one last thing I wanna hit on with you is, thoughts on the San Antonio ecosystem for biotech, life sciences, med tech, all of this space. Just, you know,
Like we,
you've been doing it for a while.
what we need are a couple of exits, like successful
Yeah.
exits. So we are pre-critical mass. Probably been saying that for like the 30 years I've been doing this now. And we've been pre-critical mass, but what are you going to do? Here's what you should not do. You should not do this. Somebody ought to do something. Don't do that one. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah,
Seriously?
yeah.
And then here's another one you should not do. Like, there's not enough money. All right. Like, good. Like, I was really good at doing both of those, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
back in the day. Young, brash, didn't know my place. Now I'm just old and brash and don't know my place. But like, come on. Like, seriously. You could bitch and moan, or you could say, I personally am going to work on this part of it. And if you get enough people saying, I personally am going to work on this, critical mass happens. It's kind of like saying, I'm
yeah,
so unhappy. Like, I should be happier. Like, choose to be
yeah,
happy. So we can sit around and go, the ecosystem is not this, it's not that. Or you could just go, you know what? Let's dive in and do it.
yeah,
That's really
yeah,
where I'm arguing.
yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I think that's a great way to end this because, I mean, that's what we're trying to do here, right? We wanna provide that foundation that makes things
Hey, I
successful.
just super shameless plug, but it's true. If you guys have not been down to Velocity, just come check it out. There's some super interesting stuff. And it's like you get out what you put in.
Mhm.
You walk in and you're like, what's in it for me? Well, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah,
But if you come and you say, hey, what's happening here? How can I contribute? What can I do? Just creative collisions alone is
yeah,
what you guys
yep.
are doing. And I'm such a
Exactly,
big supporter of.
exactly.
So you got to come check out Velocity. If you haven't done it yet, what are you doing?